The world is terrifying and beautiful. In mossy, humid groves, glowing spores sway in the air. Winged beetles perch on the walls like razor-mawed parrots, suckling moisture out of the lichen. Lakes of lava bubble thickly below an old town built of bone. Our footsteps ring out across a chamber lined with the husks of ancient bells. At the end of it, we spy an unfortunate creature struggling in its silk cocoon, keening softly. Eventually, we find the means to free it. And then it pounces. This is only the beginning of Jen Simpkin's 13-page Hollow Knight Silksong exclusive in Edge Magazine's February 2021 issue. And man, oh man, do we finally have some new stuff to dig into. It can be a rough time praying with my rosaries constantly for new Silksong info, and Jen's article doesn't disappoint. Today, we'll be talking about the various new tidbits we got from the magazine, but if you're at all interested in Silksong or just supporting indies in general, I would suggest you purchase a digital version of the issue yourself. It's only $5, and the article was really well done. Getting executives to agree to feature an indie game on the cover was not easy, so supporting this issue could help more indie games get top billing in the future. Consider picking it up. To start things off, TC talks about how Hornet is bigger and weightier than the Knight, and how the world, game mechanics, and even the camera needed to be changed for her size. Hornet can travel so much faster, she can jump higher, she can mantle or clamber onto ledges, she's generally more acrobatic. For this reason, the caves around her have to expand to accommodate her height. Her speed and acrobatics also have required enemy designs to be changed from Hollow Knight to have enemies be more complex. While having a quote-unquote Goomba in Hollow Knight was acceptable, and the most complex enemies were generally humanoid bugs that could block and attack in various directions, Silksong demands that even the most basic of enemies have some level of intelligence. Enemies will have surprise ways of chasing you, keeping up with you, or interacting with the environment. For example, the skull-wearing creatures discussed in the past are called Goomba Plus here, as they are still simple but pretend to be skulls and have more depth to their interactions. There's also an enemy similar to a moss charger but with many legs that will accelerate as it moves, making it harder to predict. Perhaps this fellow. On this screenshot, we see an NPC holding pins in this beautiful town that has a collapsible stairway. Hornet is actually able to cancel out of mantling animations to gain height faster, something that will certainly be used in speedruns. We also see a few new tools and areas, the first being in this image here of what appears to be a subsection of the Moss Grotto, full of clovers and little clover bugs. We see an orange tool equipped to Hornet here, but we'll just need to wait and see what sort of mechanic it is. We also get a view at a few of the other new tools in this image that show off the Reaper crest. Each crest will make Hornet's UI change in appearance, and we'll see several in this article. One theory that we can debunk here is that Hornet will only ever have one red slot available at once, due to the number of buttons that can be mapped to. We can see in some of these shots and the Reaper crest that there will be crests that offer at least 2 active tool options. Ari and William mentioned that unlike the Knight, Hornet is actually part bug, so a lot more of the game will have a more physical feel to it. There are less glowy orb things and magic bursts of light, and many more blades and traps, including trigger threads designed to catch out those not paying proper attention to their surroundings. Magic is a more distant thing in Farloom, even if many mysteries and oddities surround the world and its inhabitants. On that note, TC talks about the replacement of charms for the tool system. While charms had a way of somehow just socketing themselves into the Knight, all of Hornet's tools will have some physical presence, whether they are along the lines of pendants, necklaces, brooches, bracelets, and other things that have evidence of being wearable. For example, Hornet can trade rosaries for a necklace in Bone Bottom that let you collect more shell shards from creatures. This could either mean that enemies will drop more shell shards, or that Hornet will be able to increase her cap. We'll have to wait and find out for sure. Either way, Ari and Williams say, it's cool, it means we can get fan art of Hornet wearing everything, and we'll do it if no one else does. A few more tools we are introduced to are the Boomerang, which can change trajectory if hit in certain ways, a Drill, and the finalized name for the spike traps as Stink Shards. We also get confirmation that the straight pin can be modified into the triple pin, and learn that Hornet will actually be learning the tools and modifications from Farloom itself. Part of the fun of her toolset, particularly her offensive toolset, is that Hornet can develop new tools based on the stuff she encounters in the world. Fighting an enemy with a specialized pin may give Hornet an idea for a new weapon to use herself with a twist, for example. Team Cherry also discusses Hornet's bind mechanic and the design behind it. Due to bind being so quick and versatile and healing 3 masks, many more enemies and hazards will deal 2 masks of damage in Silksong. The idea is you will spend more time either at full health or almost dead, and the gameplay is kind of snapping between these states. On the topic of death, we again get confirmation that Hornet will lose rosaries on death, but that Silksong has a new banking mechanic that Hornet can take on the go. We already knew about rosary strings, items that could hold multiple rosaries to be stored between deaths, but we now know that Hornet can pay NPCs a little extra to string her rosaries together for her, so she can break them open for use only when she really needs them to keep them safe. In the gameplay shown to Jen, William pays an NPC 120 rosaries to create a 100 rosary string. We also get a little information about benches. There will be a whole variety of bench types, and Ari suggests that they've potentially made 100 different kinds of benches. It is unclear if they're all going to be used in the final game, but just for some context, Hollow Knight had 57 benches. Even accounting for the fact that tool repair and the more dangerous death mechanic might mean more benches per area, we're still looking at a game that very realistically will be dwarfing Hollow Nest. However, the game is meant to be a comparable test of skill to Hollow Knight, with Silksong intended to be a perfect jumping off point for new players to the series, which stands alongside the first game. Hornet's mechanics will be notably different, but not harder than the Knight's. Bone Bottom has also been called the Hub Town. What this means is still unknown, but based on the gameplay that Jen was led through, it seems like it'll be connecting to a lot of different areas, and perhaps even growing in size as the game goes on. We also see Chakra sitting near Hornet in this image, who, similarly to Cornifer, will have yellow bangles stuck in the ground that signify her location. Ari and William have said that music, bells, and various interactables will be used to help the player determine the locations of characters, and they seemed very excited at the ability to have Hornet interact with Chakra's bangles, and perhaps even hinted at a fight with her at some point. This image shows off another character that Hornet will be playing the needle in for, that bears some resemblance to the ant tribe in an area between the Moss Grotto and their Forest of Bones-esque home. Another character we got some info on is Trobio, who is shaping up to be one of my favorites. The narrative idea behind Trobio seems to be, the hero enters, he steps onto the stage, utterly convinced of his own brilliance, and proceeds to do a lot of stupid things, set to a gloriously goofy accompaniment from Christopher Larkin. We also learn that the scissor enemies we've seen previously may be late game enemies, and that their scissors may have the ability to cut the silk Hornet is using for movement abilities. Having a grapple stopped halfway because an enemy interacts with your abilities is a really cool concept, and it just makes me love these little dudes even more than I already did. Another potentially silk-based move we hear about is the drill move, unrelated to the drill tool, where she becomes something of a spinning top and descends towards enemies. We see Garmin and Zaza potentially assisting in a battle against this large foe, while Hornet presumably downslashes as well. Much like everything else discussed, the fleas also seem to be more interactive than the grubs were in Hollow Knight. The fleas will find themselves in all sorts of dangerous situations that Hornet will need to rescue them from, including being attacked by enemies. After being saved, they'll return to the caravan, which Team Cherry describes as almost being a dirt mouth on wheels. On this note, Team Cherry reassures players that the quest system will not be taking the place of the naturally unfolding storylines that we got in Hollow Knight, such as the Grub Father or Caravan quests. Instead, quests will exist alongside these existing storylines that can have multiple changes or endings, depending on the player's actions. The Marrow appears to be the official name for the bell tunnels we've seen up until this point, including the area for the fight against the now named Bell Beast, who Hornet will have to save and then fight and tame to gain access to fast travel. However, after defeating the Bell Beast in the Marrow, it runs away to Jen's surprise, so we're still not sure how or how early fast travel will be accessible to Hornet. Team Cherry also states that Hornet is in a weakened state due to being sat by the cage she was trapped in during the intro, and that the Weavers, or what's left of them, will help her restore it. One such move Hornet learns from the Weavers is the Silk Spear, the forward lunge that many up until now have been calling the Needle Throw. Finally, this enemy here has been called Last Judge. He will fire rings of flames at Hornet. He appears in another area that looks somewhat familiar but can't be quite specifically placed, and Team Cherry has said that there are still many lands to explore. The initial hook is to get to the Citadel, which is at the top of the world. And then, the next thing players might be presented with is, get to the top of the Citadel. Gibson interjects, "You're saying too much," and Pellin laughs, "Is that too much?" Clearly, Ari and William have much more hiding up their sleeves, and we'll just need to explore it ourselves, hopefully sometime in 2021. It's hard to imagine the game needs too much more time in development given the information in this interview, as well as the fact that they did one in the first place, but only time will tell. As a send-off, Team Cherry talks a little about their plans after Silksong. It'll be a non-Hollow Knight game that they're excited to get into, and is currently a Google document that keeps getting expanded as each new idea comes into place. Despite not having the same characters or world, it'll definitely still play to their recognized strengths, with exploration and NPC interaction playing a huge part. Above all, the new game will be something we get to explore, says Pellin. Gibson says, "We could probably learn to not make our world so big." I wonder what would happen. I think it's probably impossible, but we could try. Regardless of what happens with Silksong in this future title, one thing we already knew becomes more and more clear by the day. Team Cherry truly are amazing developers with a masterful understanding of their craft, and whatever comes next, I am absolutely looking forward to it. It's been a long and tough year, but this info blast from the higher beings themselves has put some light at the end of the tunnel, and I can't wait to get into Silksong myself. If you want to see me cover future Silksong updates and my eventual playthrough, consider subscribing as well as checking out some other Hollow Knight and Silksong related content I've done. I'll see you all next time.